All right, a couple people wanted to tour the garden, but my house really doesn't get Wi-Fi out here, so I figured I'll make the video for you guys. I'll start over here and we'll end up walking around. Right here, this is an apple tree. This is actually a tree that has several different varieties grafted onto it, so I can produce multiple kinds of apples. So you see I got them labeled right here. The apples are just starting to come in, so if I kind of focus on a few of them, you'll see them right there. They'll end up getting bigger. Got some fig trees here. This is like my row of fig trees right here. You may have seen in one of my classrooms that I was growing baby fig trees. This is what they look like after a couple years. Focus in on it. About right there, you can see that's a little tiny fig in development. This is a bigger version of a different type of fig. They're even less developed on this tree. In a couple weeks, you'll really start to see them. I think this tree right here actually has ones that are a little bit more developed. If you take a look here, I'm trying to find the fig. You can see this one's a lot bigger than the other ones there. Thing over here is a lemon tree. If you take a look here, I actually have a lemon that was pollinated, I would say, over the winter, but now it's got new flowers coming in, and hopefully those will start to grow lemons. More fig trees here. Going into the backyard. Maybe not if I can't get this gate open. There we go. I'm locked out of my own backyard. There we go. So if you take a look here, most of the lettuce has started to bolt, so I'm not going to be eating that anymore. But what I do is I replace this with tomato plants. So there's tomato plants scattered all throughout this garden here. One of the things that a lot of people know is that tomato grows well with basil. They're kind of companion crops, so we can grow them together and they make a good combination. We grow a lot of extra plants here, so I put all the extra ones in buckets if I can't fit them in the garden. If you take a look at that, that's an eggplant in the making right there. These things right here are beans. In the bucket right here, these are beets. If you take a look here, you can kind of see the beetroot just beginning to form right about there. I used to grow strawberries here, but have stopped because my kids don't feel like eating them. But this is like the remnants of the strawberry plant, so you can see strawberries being produced there. Over here, this is the pepper garden. So you got various different types of peppers coming in. This stuff right here, this is garlic. This will have to be pulled in a little bit. Garlic is something that grows underground, so you might be able to see the bulb. Yeah, have it exposed just a little bit. And let me get that out of the way. If you take a look right there, you can see the bulb. It's just about ready to be picked, probably in the next couple of days. Over here, this is an interesting crop. Most people have never seen it before. This fern right here, this is asparagus. This is what the asparagus plant looks like. Doesn't look like anything like the asparagus you would eat because right now these ferns are fully developed. But what ends up happening is that the asparagus comes from the ground and you can clip it before it turns into this fern. So, honing in on it, you can see the asparagus sphere coming up right there. It's probably going to be ready for clipping when it gets to about there, maybe 6 inches high. But the thing about it is if you don't get it early, you're not going to get it at all, because this thing will probably grow another 10 inches by the end of the day. And that's what happens when the weather ends up getting warmer. And take a look here, this is my flower display. These right here are all wildflowers. What it does is it attracts a lot of pollinators, so a lot of beneficial insects. I think I might be able to zoom in and you see that little pollinator right there. These things right here, they'll eat, or they'll lay larvae in every caterpillar that is, I would say, a pest in the garden. And so they end up taking out all the larvae that I don't want in the garden. They're called parasitic wasps. If you take a look here, there's the clematis plant. On top of it, I've layered it with something called the honeysuckle. This is a honeysuckle plant. I put this here because the hummingbirds like it. So the hummingbirds will go right into my kitchen window and feed on that plant there. This thing right here is a hazelnut tree. Still no hazelnuts on it. What I had to do is I had to get a sister tree in order to pollinate it. Apparently you need 2 plants to pollinate. It's huge, and I think if it ever starts producing, it's going to produce a ton of hazelnuts. Over here, this is a grapevine. So it just got done flowering. All the grapes have been pollinated, and each of these little circles that you see here will turn into a Concord grape. So I'll end up getting buckets and buckets of grapes off of this thing right here. So what did you see? You saw about 6 gardens over there. I made one over here too. You take a look. This is where all my extra crap goes. Everything that I grew from seed, I grew extras, and got a bunch of pepper plants here. Another tomato plant. This right here, that's a kale plant. It's called Tuscan kale or dinosaur kale. These are cabbages right here. More tomatoes. In here we have potatoes. So I'll be able to empty these buckets out and pretty much just dump out the potatoes in a little bit. This thing right here is my squirrel trap. Although something set it off. It wasn't a squirrel, because if it was, he'd be in here. So I'll have to reset that. Got various types of mint right here. Some flowers over there. I'm growing mums. These are my early tomato plants that I was growing in the Chatham High School greenhouse. So they're accelerated. You can actually see the tomatoes are a little bit more developed than you would expect at this time of year. More fig trees over here. Fig tree. This is some onions right here. You see they're growing up high. Some of them are going to flower, so they won't produce an edible onion, but I'll be able to get seeds from that. Another fairly big fig tree right here. More tomato plants. All those little things that I grew in the classroom, you see them turning into bigger trees here. So I've probably shown you about 15 fig trees right about now. In these little pots here, I like to grow basil in the pots, because when you grow them in the pots, bugs tend to not go after them. In here, onions. This stuff right here, these are all the fig trees that I was growing in the classroom. So you can see that they're developing. I typically give them away to people, so if anyone wants a fig tree, you let me know. This stuff right here, this is our actually trees in the making right here. This, what I did was I cracked open a peach and got the seed out of it, and I seeded these peach trees right here. What I'll end up doing is graft a producing peach variety onto them, and then they should produce me some, you know, nice peaches. These things right here, these are apple trees that I seeded as well, and what I'll do is I'll graft the type of apples that I want onto them. Over here, these are my eggplant plants. Still not ready to go on the ground, but they're doing well in these pots, so I'll let them fill out the pots and then I'll end up planting them. This right here, this is a cucumber plant. But what I do is I overlay it with the sunflower right here. So the sunflower will grow big and the cucumber will climb up it. And they kind of have like a symbiotic relationship. This is where I also stake a lot of my tomatoes here. Another cucumber plant. This fern right here, this is a dill plant, so I like to use that when making dill pickles. It's also good for other things as well. That right there is a curly kale. More baby fig trees. If you take a look, this is the whiskey barrel full of goodies right here. I have everything that I like to make salads with. This is some parsley that grew from last year. In addition to that, there's like 4 or 5 different varieties of kale here. You got the Tuscan kale, Russian kale, curly kale, and this is another variety of kale. I actually don't know what it is, but I grow them all and then I just clip from it and make salads as I see fit. Pretty much it's good for a salad a day. And then I got a tomato plant growing above everything here that I'm staking to the bamboo. This right here, I mean, it's huge, but you might not recognize it, but this is oregano. So what I'm gonna end up doing now that it's hot out is I'm gonna cut all this down and hang it up and dry it, and then that'll be my oregano for the year. Got a sage plant here. This is also a sage plant that's gone to flower, so this comes back every year, but this one's about 12 years old. In the pot here, this is a chive plant. It's probably older than all of you guys. This chive plant is 20 years old and it's come back every year. Different forms of mint here. There's peppermint. There's some more sage. This is a sweet mint. Got rosemary, parsley. This right here is a bay leaf plant. This here is a different type of basil. This is called sacred basil. It's got a different fragrance to it. Over here, we got thyme. And then I'll cap it off at the peach tree. So this thing's got some peaches on it that they're usually hiding right about now, but we'll see them later on. But you can see there's a peach in development. So this tree's 3 years old. It'll end up giving me some good peaches. So I get a little obsessive with this gardening crap, but it's fun eating all this stuff. So this is what my hobby is, and what I try to do is I try to do it as much as possible, even in the winter in the greenhouse at school. So if any of you are interested in helping me grow stuff at school this year, as if we're in school, let me know, and maybe you'll come home with things to do. Actually, last thing I'll show you is this. This is the seed starter that Mr. Bendel built me, so you can end up increasing the temperature inside here. And what I have is I've seeded a lot more new things, like new beets, new kale, and I'll do a second round of crops in there. All right, so hopefully I'll see you guys Monday, and hopefully you enjoyed this.